Member for Melbourne.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. My adjournment tonight is to the Minister for Housing. I'm pleased to see him in the chamber today. Tonight I'm asking the Minister to sit down for a meeting with the Minister for Education and the local North Melbourne Primary School Council to talk about the new North Melbourne Hill Primary School and in particular the impact it will have on residents who live in public housing. This is an area that really crosses three portfolios: planning, housing and education. So I'm hoping the Minister might be able to address it tonight so we can have a really productive discussion about it. But first let me give some context. As the Minister knows, overcrowding in our inner city schools has been an issue for some time. He knows this well, and overcrowding at North Melbourne Primary has been a particular issue with the growing population. And we're really pleased to see this issue is starting to be addressed, particularly with the new Docklands Primary opening this year, and I'd like to thank the government for that. And then in last year's budget, the government committed funds for a new primary school in the public housing redevelopment site at North Melbourne. Currently the name is North Melbourne Hill Primary. Now, some of the community were a bit sceptical and cynical about the announcement. They did feel it was maybe a way to try and wedge the community and ward off any opposition the community had to private development on precious public housing land. But look, I'm not going to go into that tonight. What I do want to focus on is that now the decision has been made, the community wants to make sure that the school is the best it can be. But it has been quite difficult to get any information out of the government. Since 2016, we have tried in good faith to engage with the government on questions such as how will the school interact with the existing North Melbourne Primary School, which is just 200 metres away? Will it be a brand new school or a second campus? How will traffic be managed? How will the school design ensure that kids, particularly public housing kids, have enough outdoor and open space and that the building isn't totally inappropriate for the area? But unfortunately, it has been pretty impossible to get answers, and now it is crunch time because just a few weeks ago, the government released the initial concept drawings for the school. But on the same day, the existing school council was told it would be a separate school, department wouldn't consider making it a second campus, and that the council will only get the actual design of the school in April, but the government intends to start building in May. So I've had over 50 parents and locals contact me upset by the lack of good faith community engagement. And as the Minister would know, the diversity in North Melbourne is something that's just so highly valued. Kids who live in public housing towers sit in the same classrooms as kids from very wealthy families. It's a tight-knit community. And I'm sure the Minister, but I'm not sure if the Minister is aware that this school might effectively split North Melbourne in two, with most kids from public housing attending one school with little open space. And that's really the last thing that we want. We also want information about how traffic will be managed, how the housing development will interact with the school and what the design would be like. And look, the community wants this school to succeed, and proper good faith engagement will mean locals can truly embrace the outcome, but it won't happen if the community is left in the dark. So I'm keen to hear whether the community can get the plans, get more clarity and be properly involved in these discussions before the door shuts and decisions are already made.
The member for Melbourne raised an important matter for my attention, both as a Minister for Housing and a Minister for Planning, as specifically pertaining to the establishment of a new standalone high school, standalone primary school in North Melbourne. This is this, of course, is one of 100 new schools that the government is building between 2019 and 2026. And this, I think, will be our third, possibly our fourth vertical school. As you know, in the inner city, land is tight. So I have I have two vertical schools, one in Richmond, the Richmond High School. We are currently building the Gasworks High School in North Fitzroy, which is going to be a fantastic senior secondary college for Fitzroy and Collingwood students, years 10, 11 and 12. We've got the vertical school in Albert Park, and I think the one in the Docklands is a vertical school as well. So we've got four. This will become the fifth vertical school, simply on the basis that we do have a limited amount of land available. It's a most interesting project, Speaker. So it will be a standalone school. I can confirm that to the member. It will be a standalone high school, standalone primary school, and it will have its own, obviously, administration and governance and so forth. I am advised that the school will be opening in 2023, so it's quite an ambitious building program that we will need to undertake. I think the really interesting and challenging part of this is how you marry the school facility in with what is now commencing, and indeed work has now commenced on the early works, both on the particularly on the housing development, as the member would be aware. So there are now diggers and so forth in place to start that work, given demolition was completed quite some time ago now. In relation to the particular matters that the member raised in relation to the design of the school, I'll absolutely take that on notice and make sure that your representations are made to the VSBA. I mean, they do an excellent job, I think, in terms of both the design of the schools, but also seeking to ensure that there is valuable community input to that. In terms of the nuts and bolts of traffic management and so forth, I mean, they will be challenging issues. There's no question about that, because as I understand the location of the site, I mean, I think it's on the triangular bit of the site, which is, obviously quite narrow, and it will require, I think, very clever design of the building itself, and also the pick-up and drop-off points to make sure that the area is obviously safe for students, and obviously the provision of open space as well. This is a really exciting project for the area. I mean, the member knows very well that the existing North Melbourne Primary School is booming. I'm not sure of its total enrolment, but I suspect it's at least 1,000 students, or close to it. Probably, sorry? Yeah, well, we're getting close to 1,000 students. And I understand from my preliminary conversations with education colleagues today that this new school will accommodate at least 600 students. So the inner city public schools are booming. And we want to make sure that we have an excellent offering right across the board, whether you're in private housing, whether you're in private rental housing, whether you're in public housing, whether you're in social housing, you will have the opportunity to enjoy the magnificent benefits of the investment that this government has made in public education. I mean, it truly is a hallmark not only of the extraordinary efforts of the minister, but the commitment of this government to public education right across the state. But I'll ensure to the member for Melbourne that those conversations will continue. They'll continue on in a respectful way with your community, because I know how passionate they are, as indeed I am, about public education.